Hello, this is Patrick Barnard in Montreal. It is September 2nd, 2024. Another short commentary about a book. I'm holding it in my hand. The title of the book is Free, a Child and a Country at the End of History. The book is by a woman who teaches in England at the London School of Economics. She teaches political theory. Her name is Lea Ypi. She's the child of a very intellectual Albanian family. And this book is a memoir, but it's a memoir that gives us all a wonderful aperçu into the history of a country that is very little known, and that country is Albania. The crucial year in the book, the dividing point in the book, is 1990, when Lea Ypi was about 10 or 11 years old. She's now in her mid-40s, teaching in England. She went on from Albania eventually to Italy and then Germany and now England. She's multilingual, and her mind and her experience are actually fascinating. She was a member of what I would call a family of Albanian intellectuals. She never uses that word, but that's what they were. And the history of that family was hidden from her because of the reign of Enver Hoxha and his Communist Party in Albania for a very long time. Hoxha died in 1985, and then in December 1990, a year after the wall came down in Germany, Albania eventually dismembered its communist system. And that happened very quickly, very rapidly. Now, Ypi, when she teaches political theory, she's actually deeply influenced by Marxism, but also by other currents of ideas. I would describe her, without knowing very much about her teaching, as a kind of left-wing socialist pluralist. That eclectic mixture, I think, comes from her family, and it's her beautiful, loving, extraordinary family that she describes in this book. She's at the center of the story that begins when she's about 10 or 11, and then the three people who are most important to her, her grandmother. The book is dedicated to the grandmother, a wonderful woman, an emblematic kind of woman. Her father, this very sensitive, ironic man who suffered from asthma and died at the young age of 60, and her mother, who left Albania ahead of Lea Ypi to go to Italy. Lea Ypi was closest to her grandmother, who is an extraordinary woman, and the history of these three people in her family, to which this young child was so close, was hidden from her because they had to make up lies in order to protect the child. They would talk about people going to university and staying there for a very long time and going away from Albania. Well, university was their code for prison, because a lot of people in Ypi's family went to prison, were executed, suffered from torture, terrible sorts of things. And she describes here this book as telling the story of the odd politics of my family, of how people paid a price for who they were. Her father and her grandmother are particular heroes there because they kept very true to their own ideals, especially the grandmother. She was born in 1918, that's more than 100 years ago now, and the young grandmother went to a French lycée in Saloniki and only came back to Albania when she was 20 in about 1938. She then became an advisor for a short period of time to the government. The war came, and then the Hoxha regime began. Now, the Ypi family was in fact connected to the people who ran the old Albania. Lea Ypi didn't know this. Her great-grandfather had been a premier of the country. She did not know this. She was just told these mysterious stories about her own family. Why? Because the family's biography was bad. In other words, their class position was considered very unfavorable because they were the members of the old ruling classes in Albania. Her grandmother was a member of the Pasha class, the people who administered Albania and other places under the Ottoman Empire. But her grandmother was a most extraordinary person. And in this family, The grandmother, the father, and the mother all differentiated themselves because they all liked different revolutions. The grandmother loved the French Revolution. Of course, she'd gone to Elysee. The father was in a category all of his own. The mother was a kind of classic English liberal, much more conservative than the grandmother and the father. And the father, what was his favorite revolution? The revolution that was still to come. He's a beautiful figure in this book because kind of tragic, really. Now, in 1990, what happened? This book gives a very graphic and frightening description of what's known as the small Albanian Civil War. What happened was that Albania was dismembered, and experts came in from the International Monetary Fund, and they gave the country extremely bad advice. And what happened? There were a series of Ponzi schemes that soaked up people's savings, and people lost everything they had, including Lea Ypi's own family. She believes, like her grandmother, very deeply in freedom. The grandmother believed that the requirement of people is to be free, and to be free is to be responsible. At the same time, the grandmother also believed that freedom involved the recognition of necessity. And those two forces are there in the book, necessity and freedom. Now, when the freedom came to Albania, supposedly in the 1990s, it wasn't like that at all. And there was this very bright, intensely bright child in this very, very sensitive family. And she says her reaction to what was going on around her in the early 1990s was, I equated liberalism with broken promises, the destruction of solidarity, the right to inherit privileges, selfish enrichment, cultivating illusions while turning a blind eye to injustice. So that experience led our friend Lea Ypi to leave Albania, to go to Italy, to go to Germany, and then to become a teacher at the London School of Economics. Her views are pluralistic and also Marxist. The book begins with a citation from Rosa Luxemburg, a famous one, that human beings are not free to make history in any way they wish, but nonetheless, they do make it. That is what this book is about. The courage, the necessity, the tradition in her own family of making responsible, free choices. And for Ypi, that involves recognizing, very strongly recognizing, the necessity under which most people live.